now. Damn now.
We're ready? I would like to call the Committee of the Whole meeting of April the 25th to order, and we are honored to gather on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation. First item is the approval of the agenda.
Move approval. Move approval. Second.
All in favor? Carried. Delegations. That the committee receive the delegation of Comox Valley RCMP.
Move receipt. Second.
All in favor? Carried. Gentlemen, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Inspector Mike Curvis. I'm the officer in charge of Comox Valley Detachment.
I'm Troy Beauregard. I'm the Staff Sergeant. I'm the Operations Commander.
Welcome tonight. Or today.
We form part of the senior management team at our office, so Sergeant Brenna's part of that team as well. And he got excluded from this today, so you got the best part of the team.
Well, it's nice to see the RCMP vehicle parked outside. So thank you.
Purposely brought a marked car.
Thank you. So do you want to go through the report first?
Yeah, I'll go through this report. It's just a snapshot of what happened in the past year. I'll go through it quickly, and then we'll open it up for questions. So calls for service, and we usually use the acronym CFS, but call for service. We broke it up into years. So 2019, you can see month by month the number of files we get in the community. And then for 220 and 221 and 222, because our fiscal year runs from April to April, we put that little snapshot in there for this year. And it shows that it's pretty consistent. It goes up and down depending on what kind of calls for service we have. So there is no real trend, but you can see from year to year about the calls for service, and they're pretty similar. So there's a question posed of us about hours that we spend in the community. So we really don't have a system for that, but we kind of do it by file. Members can spend 20 minutes to 4 hours on a file, so we really don't account for how many hours members spend. We just do it by file count and how much time they spend report writing. So on that, like I said, can be from 20 minutes to write up a file or a report to 4 hours. And then there's follow-up involved as well. If there's a court package involved with that, there's follow-up, there's court time. There's a lot of different factors that come into what the service requirement is. So this is designed to document police files not billable hours. It does not record the number of members or time members spent accessing a file after it is dispatched, and members clear the initial occurrence. Hours spent in the community varies from year to year depending on what the file count is and what the needs of the community are. For example, major crimes, if we have a serious crime, you're going to get a lot more people in the community, like our major crimes team. You're going to have your frontline officers, you're going to have forensics. If it's a traffic accident, we have traffic reconstructionists. So depending on what type of occurrence we have, you're going to get that response to the incident. Again, if we are visible and out there doing our job with community policing, then it's less likely things are going to happen because people are going to stop what they're doing and because they don't want to have a contact with us. So that helps us. And then the more we are out in the community and in different parts of the Comox Valley, that kind of helps all the communities from things happening, right? So the top 10 file types. So we kind of did it by what your community is having. So suspicious occurrence, traffic, property loss, check well-being, mischief under 911 calls, unspecified systems, which can be anything of the above four, mental health act files, breach of peace, and false alarms. So those are the top files. As you can see, there's not a lot of major crime that happens in the community. And then here's person violent crime files for 2021. Assault is a common assault. Push, a shove, or a punch, that's common. Harassing communications can be by email or telephone. Not too much of that. Utter threats is the same thing. Assault with a weapon, that could be a bat or a hockey stick or any other kind of weapon. There's 4 of those. Criminal harassment, that's repeated harassing communications, basically. You get repeated calls or emails, and if you accumulate a lot of those, we can kind of take the next step to criminal harassment. That's why it's so important things have to be reported to us, so we can accumulate that information and track it. Robbery with firearm, you had one, and I believe we're still working on that, but I think we have some subtle leads on that. Assault PO, which is when we get assaulted in a fight or an arrest, and that goes to the courts. Robbery with offensive weapon, sexual interference, intimate image, which is not the best file to have. Assault with child abuse, and then forcible confinement. So as you can see, there's not a whole lot of serious incidents that happen in the community. Of all these, like the assault comment is the most common file we go to, and those are dealt with pretty quickly. So once we get that call, and I want to refresh everybody's memory about how priority calls are handled by us, it's priority 1 to 4. So priority 1 and 2 is immediate response. 3s and 4s are going to be stacked in our queue, and we'll get a response when we can, just because of numbers. And we're dealing with all of Comox Valley, so like an assault or a robbery, you're going to get immediate response, depending on nature. Our dispatchers are very good at screening the calls and prioritizing those. 3s and 4s, you'll get a call maybe an hour, 2 hours, because there's no imminent threat to anybody. There's no danger, so that can wait for someone to come clear and deal with that matter. So our ultimate goal is to deal with a file, work it and complete it to a point where we can put it to rest and move on to the next thing, because we don't want to be coming back and trying to pick up little pieces. So we want to investigate it to its fullest when we start it. Traffic complaints, a little bit down from last year. Part of that is we have a little bit more visibility in the community. Reserve Constable Waddell is in the community quite a bit. He's kind of a two-edged sword. He's giving out violation tickets, so you might get some calls on that. But it is serving a purpose. It's helping us on those speed zones that you're concerned about. Impaired driving, again, a downward trend. I think with designated drivers and people being more aware, that's always a downward trend. Watercraft safety. We did a fair bit in 220 last year because of COVID and resourcing issues with us. We couldn't get on the lake that often. We are reinstituting that this year. We'll get on the water with our smaller boat. So hopefully we get some more visibility on the water for you. Campgrounds, we had a pretty good presence last year, and that'll be again this year. We'll do the same thing. We'll have those guys coming around, bike guys, and doing their patrols, making sure everything's good on the campground. So here's the type of files we had at the campground last year. Suspicious occurrence, assault, cause of disturbance, missing person, stranded, unknown, bylaw, property found, and mischief. So very small potatoes when you think about the seriousness of the files. And then looking forward, again, we want to keep that frontline staffing levels. We want to keep the visibility, kind of keep that community policing model going. Target, identify prolific offenders. That's one of our mandates at the office, is to identify our property crime offenders, the prolific offenders, and deal with them appropriately. Because of resourcing, we had to take street crimes and put it in frontline policing, because we needed frontline policing. They have just been put back together in the last month or two, which means they're going to be working on the prolific offenders and the drug offenses, and we'll get some targeted action on those type of files. So that's it in a nutshell.
Would you say that Cumberland's population of under 5,000, where are we overall in the province in the way of stats and crime? Are we high or are we low in the lower end?
I'd have to look. You can actually look that online with the crime index.
Okay.
But anecdotally, I'd say the village is doing well.
Yes.
Okay. That sounds really good. I'd like to hear that. Okay, we'll go around the table for questions. Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, gentlemen. All I can say is that just looking at the stats, and you mentioned earlier that we weren't trending one way or the other, and considering how much people are living here, I think that we are trending down in crime, so that's pretty good. And the more people that have come here, the less crime is happening, so that seems to be an interesting stat, seems to me. But thanks for the presentation.
Councillor Sproul?
Well, for quite a number of years, our number one problem, as we recorded it, was off-road vehicles. And I have to say there are less. I live on the Comox Lake Road, and one went by yesterday. I went, oh, an off-road vehicle. You know, it used to be all the time, and I couldn't stand there taking numbers and stuff. I don't understand why. I mean, unless the logging companies are blocking off their roads, because they had so many ways of getting off the main roads. So anyway, I'm happy about it. I won't be. It's fine.
Okay. Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, thanks. So in local government, we've been looking at doing cultural sensitivity training and trying to look at our own practices around systematic racism. And I was wondering if the RCMP are following a similar process.
Yes, we are. We have in-house courses that we're required to do on all those topics.
Great, thanks.
Councillor Brown?
Hi, yeah, thanks for coming. I'm curious, one of the reports, there's a domestic assault line, and that didn't show up in the stuff on here. And just, I'm
My
concerned
apologies.
about that trend. It looks like it's, stable, but not increasing, but maybe it was included in, I guess my question is, was it included in another category? Like, would that go into just regular assault? Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Okay. And then, yeah, just encouragement for and appreciation for the work out at the lake. It is remote, and we do have things going on out there at times that are obviously of concern. So, not to mention crazy traffic issues. But yeah, thank you. And the other question I had is, I know we've made space for you in an office. Is someone regularly inhabiting that office? And also, is the community welcome to just come knock on the door and say, hey, I'm concerned about this or that or the other thing, or I've had this thing come up, or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I know the bike unit comes up here and uses it regularly when they're here, doing their ride around. They're doing the trails, and they're going around as best they can, what they can go through. I encourage them to walk the beat, if you want to call it that, on the streets, so they can do. And I know not too long, maybe a few weeks ago, they were walking, going to the shop owners, and they're very happy to see us.
Nice.
When the door's there, if the truck's there, by all means, knock on the door. Absolutely. I'll let them know. I'll warn them.
Yeah. That's great. I think, yeah, just, we're always talking about community policing. And so if the community's aware that you're here, and when the car's out front, that they're welcome to stop in, I
Yeah.
think that would go a long way.
Yeah,
Thanks.
sometimes that is used for interviews, so there might be
Oh,
times that
right.
they're not going
Okay.
to answer, but
Yeah.
typically they should be okay to do that.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Just getting back to your question here, we have the data on specifically interpartner violence, and from quarter, there was one more reported this quarter to last. So, but again, you're looking at numbers from like 1 to 2. So it's
Yeah, it's still pretty
big
low. Yeah.
difference.
Okay. I've heard around town that your presence has been very welcome by a lot of people. They're very pleased to see you out and about and having lunch at the local restaurants. It's been very nice to see that. And the other part to that is that there is a little bit of concern about the motorbikes driving on the main street, unlicensed. And there seems to be, with the nice weather coming, that it's happening more often. So that still is a concern. And I know you cannot chase them or go after them because of, and I've asked people if they would take pictures and send them to you. And so the people that are doing this, be aware.
Yeah, so this boils down if they're licensed or unlicensed. If they're unlicensed, obviously, that's against the rules. So we'll try and take some action. But again, you're right, we can't chase them, and it'd just be foolish for us to do that. Part of that is they're wearing helmets, and how do you identify somebody? So pictures help. Again, reporting that stuff helps us with correlating information, and maybe somewhere down the road, we can put some pieces together and we can actually give somebody a ticket for that.
Yes, and quite often the school would like to take their children, the students out on a walk and visit either our fire department or the police. Is there a way that we could arrange that with the different teachers if they want to bring the children down?
Yes, that will be Monica Lagney.
Okay,
She might even be able to arrange for a visit at the school instead of bringing everybody across
Yeah,
that way.
she'll just come this way.
yes.
So actually, that's part of our program. We have officers attached to different schools in the community. They're responsible to go to those schools and present themselves and do a presentation if possible. So we'll find out who's responsible for the school, and we'll try and get someone to come out.
I know a big asset to us is the fire department. The kids love getting on the fire trucks.
How many
Let them
kids
in
can you get
in your
those
car.
Yeah, they could turn the sirens on.
Yeah.
We've done that in the past where we open up the car and they can come in and do stuff. There's nothing that
Yeah.
can break in there, so it's all good. If we don't break it, they're safe.
Okay, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Really appreciate you coming and giving your report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have reports, and we have, the committee receives the Communications Planning Update Report.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Thank you, Your Worship, Council. It's nice to be in front of you today. Feels like back to the podium. It feels like another fresh start, doesn't it? In front of you, we just have an update report on sort of our communications planning process. I think the last time we're in front of you, Zinc Communications had just released a sort of a short-term snapshot report that included a bunch of both public and internal engagement. The outcomes of that were that we worked with another communications consultant to develop somewhat of a work plan or a strategy on identifying what we need to do and then putting in some timeframes around how we're going to take those steps. And you can see that's appended to the back of the communications report, just a snapshot report. You can see by the status column, there's some things that we've already started on, just things that we've identified as things that we already do. And so we'll continue to do those, but what we're doing, myself with support of Rachel and Melissa, is trying to put some protocol and process around that so that we have those practices written down and we know how things work. And we'll continue to work on those. And so there's some other things in the long term that we haven't got to yet. But I think one of the biggest ones that you'll see coming up in the next week or so is the RFP for our new website. And that'll dictate too, as well as how much we can implement, because this website's going to be a great tool for us to do a lot of the work that's in here as well. So in addition to sort of our work plan and schedules, it kind of gives us an idea about the roles and responsibilities of who's going to be involved in the on the communications team, for lack of a better term. But we've also noted in there that as we get further down this communications process, there will be a time probably when staff will come and say and recommend maybe budgeting in 2023 some resources for somebody that specializes in that type of work and maintaining that sort of consistency with how we do things as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions should you have any.
Okay, Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, so the feel I got from the report was that we were sort of going to have somebody from each department sort of take responsibility. And so, we're having informed information from that department come out. But overall, is the goal to have a singular communications person for the Village of Cumberland with that training?
Yeah, and I think it's two parts. Thanks for the question, Councillor, because it's about, one, making sure that we have the department's input, we're collecting the proper information from the right people, but also being very aware of their capacity. And so, you know, the processes that we're creating right now are for getting staff to give us things like for a media release. Here's a form, and all we really need is the facts. And then our communications team can use that type of factual information to create a narrative that either goes on our website, it goes into a media release, and so there will be sort of tuning or fine-tuning of the messaging through the communications team, but the managers and the departments will be responsible for sharing that factual information about, you know, if it's public works, it's street closures and the type of works that's going down, and then the communications team can apply it in different ways. And that's one, trying to be mindful of having our senior leadership writing media releases, which may not be their comfort zone. And two, also finding ways that they could delegate some of that work and start to create boilerplate text and familiar messaging so that eventually it'll be checking in with managers to ensure that information is consistent as opposed to having them write stuff from the very beginning. So it's keeping an eye on our capacity and making sure that we're not asking more from that leadership group than we need to.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Brown?
Thank you. Yeah, so I was having trouble, and maybe that's because it's in process, but determining so at one point it says there's a shared responsibility model, so each individual staff person is responsible for communicating, obviously, to a certain level. And then there's a communications lead and a comms manager and a communication admin team. So I'm trying to figure out how those are interacting. Are all those people included in the admin team? Is that how it's going to look?
Yeah, and so maybe I should have, there's a part of the report that I missed out is sort of, one is finalizing this work plan.
Oh, okay.
And that's part of building out that team as well. And so there'll be somebody, a manager who's responsible for the communications and taking on the responsibility of creating the processes and having things like style sheets and review processes. But we already have staff right now administratively that are doing these things. So who's doing the postings? And also we do communications across departments, recreation, right? And so identifying within those teams who already does that work and then pulling them together into a smaller communications team that we can meet and talk about what's coming up and what we need to do and what each department needs as well. So it will be a bit of a small nuclear team, but making sure that we have that leadership capacity and that administrative capacity will be something long term. So getting back to what this plan will do, our goal right now is the communication specialist, Natasha Horseman, that's helped with this, is going to workshop this with the early communications team and staff. And then we'll come back and we'll finalize the strategy as a formal strategy later this summer with council's input.
Awesome.
And then that way we can apply it. But, you know, recognizing our transition right now, I want to get a report like this in front of you to say there is a work plan for these types of things and that staff are able to continue to work forward and continue to work on it. Despite our adaptability at the moment.
Thank you. And the only other thing I wanted to add was I really appreciate the weekly updates we get internally. And I think the community would appreciate something like that as well, whether it's I don't know what that might look like, whether it's the newsletter or the Facebook page or one of the other tools you have in the toolbox, but just that getting out in front of things before we're reacting.
Yeah, and likewise meeting as a team and being able to discuss what's happening in the next 2 weeks to make sure that our communication plans is addressing it. One of the things that staff has really realized as we put news posts out there is that we're a lot busier in the information we put out, especially as we start to do new plans and new studies, and there seems to be, and there's some shortcomings with our website, so the new website hopefully will be able to keep these things, maybe something like a ticker tape so that we don't lose important items. And making sure that weekly newsletter, the email I really appreciate, and I know some of the members of the community, because every Friday you get an email where there's a new post with everything that's going on. So yeah, no, I agree.
Okay. Councillor Sproul?
Yes, thanks, Kaylin. There's a lot of information here. One thing I did notice is that there was quite a bit of repetition in here. I think there could be less words. You know, it's a lot for people to read, and I see it says Launch a Village Facebook page here, and it says it up here, and I noticed a few things, so maybe condense a bit because people can only read so much. But I'm happy to see all these things in the report. So thank
Okay, Councillor Sullivan?
Yes, thank you. You kind of answered my question there at the end of Councillor Brown's, one of her questions, just that I was hoping to, when you mentioned you're working with Natasha coming up, just that there's no real, the goals and the actions aren't tied to any years or any correlation to timelines and stuff, which you kind of touched on. And I just kind of shared Councillor Spruill's sort of interest in how this was presented, and I was just sure with Natasha and finalized report will hopefully be a little bit more concise. I understand where you're going with, but just the repetition it's a little I'd like it to be more clear, I think. But I think that's what final reports are about. So you answered my question, so I could have just not said any of that, but I wanted to say something, so here we go.
No, and thank you, Councillor. I'll make a note of that because right now this is a very draft work plan, and it's designed in a
totally.
sense that we don't. So if you see things like Facebook, it's so that we don't lose it. We need it attached to the website, but we also need it within our roles and responsibilities because somebody has to be accountable for it. But all these things will come together and a little bit more cleanly, absolutely, in the finalized work plan.
Yeah, I don't envy our Facebook person, whoever that is, whenever that is.
We're going to have no comments.
It's kind of like, oh, see Facebook at the end of the 6th goal and the 5-year plan. It's like, okay, well, 5 years we will have a Facebook. That'll be.
Do we have a timeline for sorry if it's in here already, but for the end of Natasha's work, or when the final report is
The
coming?
final report, it'll be June or July, most
Okay.
likely. We're going to workshop it in May with staff.
Okay.
And we're planning potentially 2 as well, both with sort of the administrative, the functioning staff who operate the communication side, and then with the leadership group, just to make sure that our procedures and stuff are aligned.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, it was really nice to read this report. I'm looking forward to when it's implemented. No pressure.
Maybe not the Facebook part.
And I'm really glad to see, because we still have a lot of the community that is not on social media. And we can't forget that that's really important to acknowledge. And it's really interesting when we do mail-outs. The amount that is put in the garbage now in the post office has gone down considerably. And so it's nice to see that people are actually reading our communications now. Yes. Thank you. Next, the committee received the quarterly reports to council January to March 2022.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Michelle, I think you're gonna. Everyone's looking at me.
Okay,
I don't know about this new table personally. Like this.
so
It's closer than that one.
Very
Too far away
Kevin
over
is
there.
going to sit up here for this because, of course, he's going to be taking on many of these initiatives, and so he can answer some questions as well. But before Clayton left, he did do a report for you, and attached is all of our quarterly strategic updates to start with, and we can answer some questions for anybody if you have any.
We'll start out that way. Is there anything that you wanted to highlight? What I noticed was there are a lot of new,
No doubt.
yes.
Yeah,
That's a highlight.
yeah,
Yeah.
Sure.
yeah, and there's a few black complete
Yes.
boxes there too. Nice to highlight that. And just to know that this is, of course, your whole strategic plan, 2020 all the way to 2023. So you're going to have some.
Yeah, I like the first one. It's 112 goals and 43% completed.
Yeah.
That's amazing work from staff.
Well, especially when you comb through and you read the details of all these things that we're doing.
Yes.
I was extremely proud of reading this report, I have to say,
Yeah.
of staff and council.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll go around the table. So Councillor Brown, you're first.
Okay. I have a lot written down, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna try and focus on a few things. So the first one is the food security, just remains our participation in the Food Policy Council, which is awesome. But at some point, we talked about identifying potential locations for community gardens through one of our processes, and I do not remember which process it was, and I'm hoping that someone in the staff team is doing that in one of the many things that's happening right now, whether it's arts and culture and rec, which it could belong there, or some other spot. So that's the first thing, but there's a few.
Just to ask that when you say what your part, if you give us the page so we
Oh,
can
yes.
follow along with you?
Yes, sorry. I did have the page, but not for that one.
There's a lot of
Security's
pages.
on 8.
Page 8. Thank you.
That's,
It doesn't say anything
Yeah,
except food security and then
Yeah.
Regional Food Policy Council participation and Island Food Charter. That's why I'm asking the question.
It's a good catch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm not familiar with a specific process ongoing that is looking at sites for community food or community gardens. Previously, under food security, I do know there was a few notes about working with an informal working group about the orchard project. That has since essentially gone dormant. There was some initial kind of, I guess, research done on other communities and some policies in that regard. I haven't spoken with that group in several months, so it didn't make sense to keep that as an
Yeah.
update. It never got formalized. As part of the Recreation, Arts, and Culture Plan, that hasn't been considered thus far. It's not necessarily too late. I guess, is this a focus on village lands or is it private partnerships? I don't believe there's been direction on that. So-
There was some discussion about having a community garden at the affordable housing development. But
As
because
well.
we didn't get really far enough into that process, I don't know. But Marita from Lush Valley, it did talk about how there was possible funding for that if that could be part of the project. But it was really to be spearheaded by the Transition Society and Dawn to Dawn, as they were the service provider there.
Yeah, and I know that the community's expressed interest in having community gardens, and as we densify, people are going to want places to grow a few things. So just making sure that we're tracking whatever public spaces we might have, and on village land, I think, is the most appropriate, before we get a bylaw that requires something like that. That'd be great. So I don't know how we might work that into the arts and culture rec plan, but I don't know.
Can I ask a quick question? Did you
Sure.
say it was a council resolution, or what did?
No, it's not
I
a-
missed that part.
No, it was a conversation.
There's never been a motion, but we've definitely talked
Yeah.
about it a couple times. But nothing
About a report on where community gardens
Where
can
they
go.
might, yeah.
Okay.
I think it was through our strategic process.
Yeah,
Oh,
maybe
I
that's where
see.
it
Yeah, we
was.
just sort of talked about it, but didn't
Yeah, but
really
we
lay it
didn't do
down.
anything
Okay.
I
concrete.
think because of capacity.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
We talked about it, but then it was,
yeah,
we realized how much stuff already.
yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay. so-
The if I can comment, the Recreation, Arts, and Culture Plan, that could be an opportune time should there be an organization out there that is seeking or would like to come forward with a proposal. As I've discussed in the past, it's not a full parks planning process, but it is absolutely considering uses of some of our core parks. I think proximity to population would be important. So if there is an organization out there that wanted to come forward, we're just kind of nearing the end of the phase one of the project and just wrapping up kind of final details with some engagement. Now would be an opportune time. It could get considered a little bit later, but
Okay.
I'm not familiar. I haven't received any outreach from any
Anybody
Lush or
recently?
Transition Society in that regard. So.
Okay. So the other thing I wanted to, so page 34, the Cumberland Community Housing Society is marked as complete, but I think what it really is on hold. But we maybe don't have a color or a status in the chart for that, because it's not that the need.
They folded, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think the intention is still there, at least on behalf of the village, that should we have affordable housing opportunities coming up, we would want an affordable housing society in place to do that. So I don't want to lose that from our priorities. So I don't know what happens to the complete things if they eventually just fall off the whatever
I
this
could
is called.
probably speak to
Oh.
that.
Can
So,
you tell me, sorry, can you tell me what page again? Because
Page 34.
I don't think,
Not
Yeah.
on 34?
I have page 34 on my report.
oh, okay.
Yeah, that's when you said page 8 or something. I was looking and I couldn't see page 18. I had a page 18, but not an 8.
yeah, so the Cumberland Housing Society, Bobby did form a nonprofit, and we're trying to figure out whether we could sort of be something like, Whistler has like a housing authority, but we just didn't end up having the resources. There was no funding source for us to do that, and it takes a lot of capacity, and members are just kind of there doing it off the side of their desk, and without funding and without much capacity, then it just kind of waned, right? And through many years of our own affordable housing committee, so that's a separate village committee that still exists. We worked for years to try and get an affordable housing project, which we do have one shovel-ready project, but just didn't get the funding for that as well. So it really did, both things come down to resources.
Yeah, so again, I just didn't want it to disappear off the list. I know there's renewed interest in the community from people who are willing to sit on a committee like that, and I think it would be a valuable organization to have, and they would need to be have some kind of operating agreement eventually with the village. So just not wanting to lose that because of its complete status.
I see, yeah.
So because the thing didn't happen, so it's not complete, it died.
Yeah.
The organization, the people who were involved could no longer do it. There were several issues, I
And
understand.
if there
with
were
capacity there.
people out there that wanted to be part of a housing society, the Affordable Housing Committee is still,
Looking for that.
yeah,
Yeah.
still looking for members, and I think that would be a good place to start. But again, forming another committee or another society at this point, we still have the same problem of not having any funding for them, so.
Yeah, yeah,
I
I don't
think
think
that-
we're responsible for funding them at all.
No, but I
Yeah.
think it would
The
be the
Development
perfect.
Corporation, though.
Yeah, I think it would be the perfect place to start because that could develop into the society.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And it did, so it originally
Yeah.
did come out of the committee that we would try for something like a development corporation. It needed to start as a society, but it didn't have legs, so.
Yeah, and I understand that, but I think it depends a lot on the people and wanting to make it happen. So maybe there needs to be more cohesive working relationship here with new people and the existing people. Because I know that it takes a lot of people to do something like this. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, I mean, if we wanted to create a land bank or do something like that, there would be a basis for having a society like that to manage something like that. But, that has to be coming from council, and that financial commitment has to be there.
Yeah.
Because I think the people are there in the community that are willing to help with it. But, we need to make a substantial financial commitment to it.
Yeah. Well, I know the Senior Citizens Housing Society in Cumberland has been in long existence. It must be over 35 years they've existed, and they maintain the Union Square and Centennial Place. And they get money from BC Housing to update the facilities and that. And I think they have a lot of experience in that type of work. So, anyway, it's something that we could look at.
And just in answer to your question about complete, this goes right to the end of the strategic planning term. Those completes stay on here.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome,
They're-
thank
they
you.
all-
Any other questions? Councillor Brown?
I know I'll stop for now.
Okay. Councillor Sproul?
Yes, I'm thrilled to see it all. I have very few concerns about anything here. But on page 15, talking about the Soulport Park design, I tried so hard since 2003 to get a flat park up there. It was just me and the planner of the day, and it kind of pains me to see that we got that scrubby bit on the edge of a cliff, and now there's going to be pathways hacked through it. And I just wonder, have we given up on having any kind of park where you can kick a ball around? I can't let it go. It just bothers me.
But
Because there's
doesn't the
nowhere-
school provide that, though, with all their giant fields
Yeah, but the school is quite a little walk from that park.
from Soulport?
Yes?
Oh.
Well, I think.
Well, there's a
Yeah.
couple of like shortcuts through there too.
Yeah.
I support what you're saying, but
Yeah, I don't think there's enough parks either. I'm just not sure we need
Not super-
another lawn.
Excuse me,
giant
one
lawn.
person talking at a time,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and it's Councillor Sproul.
Yes, thank you. So I don't know whether it's over with, getting anything. We don't know because we haven't looked at the CDA again, but there must be somewhere. I'm not talking about anything elaborate. I'm just thinking West Courtney, 29th and Stewart. It's just like a little triangular park, very brief, very small, what's the word, uncomplicated children's play area and a little bit of room. It doesn't have to be a football field or a school field. It's just that East Courtney developed with no parks, so it's been a sensitive issue. No recreational parks.
Okay, Kevin, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, our planning staff have done some initial engagement with that community, and the plan for that site is for some more active features, not just some trails. And so that's what this project would be, is about taking that to the design stage. So taking that initial feedback we've heard, which includes some kind of 2 to 5 year old nature play features, that type of thing, and potentially some more like kind of little loop trails, things that you can be active on. I don't think it's the site for a large play field. It's, but there certainly is more to that than just kind of a neighborhood treed zone. It's to develop that into something that's a bit more active for that neighborhood. And so that project is in the budget. Its funding source is DCC, so we're working through that first, and then we would move to that design.
Thank you very much. Anything else, Councillor Sproul?
I have, but nothing of serious concern. It looks like it's unfolding well.
Okay. Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you. Yeah, I just reiterate how much I love this new format. It makes it very easy to see everything that staff and council are up to. I like the new blue thing to make sure everybody knows that everybody's ongoing and working very difficultly hard. I just have one question. I don't really have a question about most of it, but just the community amenity contribution policy and density bonus review. I wonder if we get any little tidbits from that, or are we going to wait for a report?
Where's that? What page?
Sorry, page 19 at the bottom. There's a consultant engaged to recommend changes to density bonus and community amenity contribution programs. So I was just curious what some of that would entail. If this is the right time or not for that.
So that was a report brought by our senior planner. The students that they had worked on that. Yeah. So
Oh, that's one we already saw?
yeah. Tried just to remember what that was. I'll have to look into that and maybe let you know during the
Yeah,
weekly
okay.
update what happened with that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Councillor Kettler?
Thanks. Yeah, are we still on track for the tree bylaw, it says on page 22, seeking consultant to lead it.
Sorry. Yeah, so we haven't actually, sorry, page 19, did you say?
22.
Sorry, 22.
It's under urban forest bylaw and policy development.
Yeah, so I think that one hasn't actually started. Oh, great, Courtney's here, yeah. Go ahead.
Sure. We issued a request for quotations in January, and there's no consultants available to start this spring, which was the timeline we had asked for in order to have it completed in 2022. Everyone was just really busy. So we need to now revisit the timeline, see if we can get someone to get started a little bit later. So we're still in that process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? No? Yes, Councilor Byrne?
Sorry, I just had one more thing, if that's okay. I had to find a new page. Sorry, I had the wrong page numbers in my first thing. Different device, different, I don't know. Anyway, on page 11, the Village Business Association is listed, and there's a new with the draft MOU there, which is awesome, and it's on track. But I feel like the recent grant process identified a need for a bit of clarity around the role of the CBA and our relationship with them. And I wonder if we might, I don't know whether I'm not sure exactly what that might look like, whether that's a staff report with CBA input, or I just think there's a bit of a thing there that's not clear.
I find it really interesting when council members ask a question, the staff is already coming up to the speak. Go ahead, Karen.
Please let me answer. Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Thank you.
I think what it really represents is an acknowledgement of the CBA's priorities. In this MOU, although we're very happy to enter into it and start these works, the CBA is taking their time to make sure they have pieces in place and that things are in things. So I'm very mindful of not asking them, we need this MOU done, because I understand they have their own resourcing challenges. So the door is open, the MOU is there, we continue to talk about it and work on it, but we'll do it on their time, I think is our best approach at this time.
Okay, so maybe when they're ready, there could be an opportunity for a conversation about, or some kind of, I don't know. I just think I don't fully understand what they're there for, and I don't think the rest of council fully understands what they're there for and what our relationship with them is, and I think there's a need for clarity so we don't run into problems.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the process we're getting at right now, is if, the CBA, what is the role that they play in our community, and them being able to articulate that. And I think one of the challenges that we've had previously is trying to do too much too fast, and being mindful of how the CBA was being very mindful of how they represent themselves and making sure that, because the interests that we have as a village, my job is to say this is where we can align. But it doesn't mean that needs to be the CBA's goals or values as well, right? And so being very consistent in saying things like, as that organization that provides small business supports to our community, that an organization that provides that hub of activity and networking, that can help me with all the work that I have to do to help with small businesses, if they could take a role in championing some of that. And so those are the conversations that go in around the MOU, and I think the CBA is challenged with their resources to actually figure out what their path is. And I think that's sort of where we're at, helping them with now. And then once they're able to articulate that, then we can start to work towards aligning our values and goals. But I think they're still trying to get, an understanding of where they're at. And just being mindful not to put too much pressure on them.
Agreed.
This time.
Let them go at their own pace.
Yeah, and I've had discussions with the new chairperson, and we've talked about council representation and rotating it on a monthly basis to attend their meetings, and we will be setting that up. To do, if council members agree, then we'll set up a rotation schedule so that we all understand and we can all attend a meeting with them. They're held first thing in the morning. So far, they're still on Zoom, and they will be leaving it at that, but they're waiting to get motivated enough so that they can hold, like they did before, sessions at different venues in the village and invite people to attend. That's what their hope is to get to.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Through the chair, just to acknowledge the CBA had a complete change in their board.
Yes.
And so not only are they trying to drive that organization forward, but they're getting caught up right now with what's been happening before and setting their sort of strategic path. So we'll let them and support them as best we can in doing that.
Okay, thank you. Kaylin, you should probably stay up there.
The firing line.
Next is the Village of Cumberland Climate Change Mitigation and Adaptation Action Summary,
Which page is that?
41. If everybody's finished, we've been around the table, answered all the questions on the quarterly report. Now we're doing the climate change mitigation. And this, page 41. Am I in the right one?
I don't,
Nobody's
mine's
numbers are
page
matched up.
26.
All of us are saying different numbers all day.
Mine's 26. Yours could be 26.
Maybe I can just comment on the numbers. So there's that whole document package has its numbers, and then the quarterly report has its own numbers. The quarterly report's numbers include that Cascade report, as well as Clayton's cover report, as well as this. So maybe we just, but also I would just clarify, the whole document doesn't have, you know, a 1 to 71 page on it. So it might be easier to use what's on the printed package.
Oh, I'm
For
just
this.
going one page after the other.
But if we don't have the printed package, that makes it challenging.
Whoa, way to go, guys. Way to save the earth.
Trying to save a tree.
Way to go.
Yeah, we're just making sure everybody's paying attention. So this was requested at the council meeting to see all the items that we were doing in the way of climate change and to actually put it into focus for members of council also of all the things that we have done in the past and are working on presently. Okay, so did you want to say a few words about this before we go into questions around the table?
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think this is Kalen's report so
Okay.
much as this was something as, yeah, the whole leadership team put this together. I think Rachel spearheaded it. And the
Okay.
idea was exactly as you said, was to report out on things that are maybe scattered elsewhere, but just clearly articulate what the projects are that the village is working on through council's leadership. So.
Okay. Okay. So,
Yeah, and then Kaylin does have a communication piece of the
Report.
climate. Yeah,
Okay.
But the document was put together as
Yes.
a,
so who's going to be the initial spokesperson?
well, I can just speak a little bit. So, you know, we basically just recorded Councillor Kettler at the, no.
I thought her list was longer, actually. Twice as long.
The group had identified them, some too, though. So between the two, I think we covered.
No, sorry. We so as a team, we put together this document as an effort just to let council know what we've been doing under this climate change mitigation. So everybody's added to it to talk about all the different initiatives they've been involved in. And so as you see it here, and Kaylin is going to be working with the communications consultant to actually put together a cheat sheet or an FAQ.
Yeah,
you
a
might
fact
call it?
sheet, and
Fact
I think
sheet?
there's two
Yeah.
things that we'd like to do. One, it's an impressive list. It's very easy to lose track of. It's something that's probably going to need to be updated regularly. So the two kind of communication pieces we want to do is one is a fact sheet, which then can get turned into brochures or pamphlets or posted on our website, things that we can use, again, the factual information, and then we can create some communications tools out of it. But likewise for council, being able to provide a list like this that's very well organized and very clear, so that you're able to articulate exactly what the village is doing along these initiatives. And I think that's, we've learned from the groups that have come forward, is we need to articulate better all the great work that council and staff are doing.
Okay, well,
Can I
we'll,
just ask something on page 27, and that's plain sheet. Public lands and village operations. It says that we've got a new groundwater source. Or it's on our list. I haven't heard about that.
Was that from the,
The well?
Drinking water system
well, yeah.
upgrades.
Yeah, the well down at,
Yeah, the Coal Creek?
yeah.
Aquifer. I think new is stretching it a bit. We're just sort of.
You mean down at Chinatown?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
Yes.
I thought it must mean, yeah.
yeah,
Somewhat recent.
someone
You know,
recently.
it was new at the time,
Sort of new.
newish.
Yeah. Okay, is that your question?
Yeah, that's.
Well, you started us off then. Councillor Sullivan.
I have no questions.
Okay. Councillor,
Just thankful to staff. Thank you.
Councillor Kettler.
yeah, no, I really appreciate the addition of stuff to my list. And it does say how much that we have been doing, and you know, it really does. I actually said this at the Youth March too, that, you know, climate decisions make their way into, you know, everything we do, you know, around water and sewer and parks and roads. And so when kids ask about, well, climate action, it's like, well, we are taking action in every decision that we make. But, you know, in addition to that, there's very specific stuff that we've been doing as well. You know, we didn't talk about the plastic bag ban and you know, the fact that we are a blue community, which came up last week again, around not privatizing water and not having water bottles in the community, plastic water bottles. I don't know, I was trying to see if it was under the regional thing about natural asset management.
Yeah.
Yeah.
MNMI?
Yeah, and then there's the asset management policy, which it says including consideration of natural assets. So we're still working toward that. And then the other thing was the way that we develop, and, you know, in regards to instead of blasting and flattening land, working around natural features. So I don't know that we have that type of planning initiative in there either.
Site adaptive planning?
Yeah. Do
Yeah,
we?
it could be under the OCP part, like in that, should be in that list maybe. Oh,
I'm just writing it down.
Yeah,
no, it's not there.
Okay.
yeah, so just that additional one. Yep.
No, thank you, Councillor. I think through the chair, I think it's a good idea as well if council sees things on that list, especially policy when we're working with other municipalities at the regional level. If there's things that staff have missed, please send them to me and I'll include them in that list and we'll make sure that's part of our material. And again, this took the collaboration of all the managers in the different departments, so there could be some gaps. And certainly as you work with other elected officials and stuff, there may be things that we're not incredibly familiar with that we're working at a regional level even, for example, that we may not have the best eyes on. So
Yeah, our transit plan at the regional district, but that, you know, it does involve us as the transit goes through our community, and, you know, the goal is once these buses that we're using now wear out, they will be replaced with electric buses. But it's not directly cited in here either, but it does affect our community, and those decisions are made through Cumberland, through the regional district, together. So, yeah.
Okay. Councillor Brown?
Thank you. I actually, this is awesome. Thank you for putting it together. I like the idea of having would have been super handy at that event we were at the other day. So it was only one day behind, which is great. We're almost sunk up, however you say that. But I actually, I kind of want to see it integrated into the other, you know, treating the climate work as a separate entity doesn't fully acknowledge the fact that it's actually integrated into everything we do. and it should be integrated into everything we do. So I know that's a big ask to integrate it into this awesome reporting system that's already here. But if we could do that eventually and have them maybe coded to just add some more color to it, it could be coded under climate, or there could be a climate, I don't know how we do that, but just so that it's integrated into the full spectrum of work and we're tracking it as we go. Yeah.
That, if I can quickly comment, we've discussed it's about how do we make that tool work for all our needs, and so that is something we've discussed. And I'd also add reconciliation was the other one that we thought could fit within through that filter of trying to look at it in everything we do type lens. And so I think we're just evaluating that cascade and that software and how do we best report out on these things, because there is inevitably some redundancy between these reports. So, yeah.
Thank you. Awesome.
I would just like to add that I think this is really time appropriate, and I think it puts everything in perspective that we have done for many years. We started years ago. And the sign on to the Blue community, I will agree with Councillor Kettler that it was not to use bottled water in our facilities, because we removed it from the Lake Park campground because there was no potable water at that time out there, and it was better to have them drinking water from a plastic bottle than drinking pop. That was our thoughts behind it. And the other thing was about at that time there was also a strong feeling from a lot of municipalities of turning their water systems over to private, and they wanted assurances that we would not do that. And so that's why we included that in there. That was very important that we would maintain our water system. And that's why, one of the reasons why we joined the Blue community. And it was the Council of Canadians that brought that forward to council at the time, Linda Safford, and that's when we supported it back then. So very good job. There wasn't anything that I could see that you missed. So that was great to see. Thank you very much. Next, we have Strategic Priorities Quarterly Report. Michelle.
Okay, so this is the first quarter of 2022 financial performance for council. So we pretty much always have a deficit at this point because we haven't recorded our property tax revenue yet, which is the biggest component of our revenue source for the village. It really is hovering around the same that it is every year for this quarter. You know, nothing really of anything to note for council that is missing, you know, this quarter compared to other quarters. Just the variances that I've noted are basically the same as we've had in previous years, just to do with the differences between they're compared to a whole year at December 31st, 2021, and this of course is 3 months, so that's why you're always seeing quite a few differences. Yeah, like we have $4.3 million coming in, probably, well, it'll come into revenue in May, and then we'll start collecting it over the following months. But something to note is that we still do not have to use our line of credit because of that. So we have some pretty decent funds on hand, so that's good. One thing that there is like a couple of things, like, you know, late 2021 that went straight into 2022, of course, because of the timing of when it was paid and everything, was that heavy snowfall. So we'll keep our eye on those expenses. But of course, we have our stabilization fund that we'll have for that, and anything else that we're monitoring that's a little bit higher than what we would expect. Of course, it's only quarter one, so anything higher we'll just continue to monitor. We're still in a net financial asset position at the moment. And then, of course, as per your purchasing policy, we just have two commitments that are between the 50,000 and 200,000 that we've done for so far. And I can answer any questions if you'd like.
Yes, Councillor Kettler.
Yeah, I was just wondering about interest rates and how that might affect us. The borrowing that we've done to date for fire hall and wastewater, was that a fixed borrowing that we've done in the past, or was it variable? And then is it countered by our reserves and the interest rate that they'd be getting on those?
Yep, that's exactly it. So the variable rates that we pay is for the equipment financing, and then the other long-term debt and the interim construction. Like, so right now we're borrowing for the wastewater treatment plant, like our portion of it we borrow. So that's a variable interest rate, so that's relatively low. And then the other long-term debt for your water and wastewater projects are fixed. We have normal interest rates for a couple of the ones that were refinanced. Your water supply debt that you got up there just recently, the timing of that was very good. We got like 0.93% or something for 5 years, but because they were so low, normally you wait 10 years before you refinance through MFA. That one's going to be refinanced in 5 years, so we'll go back up. Same with the fire hall debt. It wasn't as that low, but it wasn't a bad interest rate. So of course, then they're going to refinance again in 5 years because they just wouldn't be able to operate MFA. So there is another refinancing coming up before the end of the 5-year financial plan. I believe it's the downtown core, and it'll probably actually go down because it would have been higher.
That was the Dunsmuir project.
Yeah, that's right. So if our interest rates don't go up too much over the next few years, then that might reduce a little bit. Might see some savings there.
Okay.
But then, of course, our interest we're starting to see some good returns. Like, well, I shouldn't say good, actually, better, because it was really low. We were actually at the point where we were just keeping it in our savings account because our financial institution kind of guaranteed us a little bit of money in there if we kept it instead of trying to. So that was where we were at. We were keeping it there, but starting to see a few 1.85s and stuff like that. Not much. So
Okay, thank you.
So
Yeah.
can I just follow up on that? But those have gone up now, so we're starting to generate more, but you're saying it's still only at 1.8. So the Super Saver is probably still a better deal.
actually, I have put some money into some of
Okay.
those 1.8s because we recently just got some. It's really hard because we do have cash flows that we have to be careful of. So, we want to make sure there's money available, but there was some recent product where we can cash it after 90 days. So I did take a really big chunk and put it into that. And so we'll start to see a bit of interest revenue coming from that. And we also got, I think last October, we got like a little bit higher than our savings. So I put another chunk there. So that'll come through in October. But yeah, our savings has gone, like our savings has inched up a little bit, but we'll try and take advantage of some of these higher interest rates as they come through with our cash flow, especially once we start collecting taxes.
Yeah.
Councillor Sullivan?
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. The backup generator, the commitment date, does that mean it's arrived or we pay for it on that date for the fire hall?
Yeah, Kevin, do you know if it's arrived yet? I don't know. I think we're still waiting. There's been a bit of influx on that date.
It
hasn't
says
Yeah.
it says in the report that it's en route.
Yeah.
And I think there's also a coordination of install Rob was still working on to
Right.
finalize that piece. So whether it's arrived or not and functional, I'm not sure.
That was it.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Sproul, did you have a question?
Nope.
Okay, thank you very much, Michelle. Good report. Next, Protective Services Quarterly Report. Is there anything there that you would like to highlight, or
I must be missing.
keep going? You're not finished yet. Keep going.
Okay. Oh,
There you go. Okay.
I think we can just answer some questions on that, hopefully.
Okay.
For you, if
Okay.
you need to.
Councillor Sullivan, do you have any questions on the report?
No.
No. Councillor Kettler?
Just, around the breakdown of engine number 6, is that, which engine is that? Is that the one that we bought from Courtney?
No,
Recently.
we haven't purchased that yet. So no, it's.
You're jumping the boat here.
I would say engine 6 is one of the older
It's
ones.
an
So
older-
we're gonna start to see some of those repairs coming through. We've got some pretty old vehicles on our fleets.
So it's a strategy, though, to keep them in case, like, we get callouts for the province and for sort of more bush stuff that we would want to use older equipment.
This works under review right now, what that kind of equipment planning should look like, and we're evaluating also the potential option of the Courtney ladder truck purchase as well. So it's ongoing work right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we didn't get sold a lemon.
We haven't purchased 11.
We have not purchased.
Better not be a lemon.
Wait and see.
Okay. Is that, did you have anything else? Councillor Brown?
No, I just would really appreciate if we had either James or Mike here to answer questions when these reports come forward, because I think they have much more knowledge than these staff. Maybe that's no, it's not.
Why don't you give them a
So-
shot? They said they would answer questions.
No, I don't have any questions, but I it would be great if they were here to present the report.
And
Oh, sorry, I did too. Just around the bylaw, because they're saying that they're super busy. Did we talk about increasing bylaw hours at our last strategic planning?
You guys, we sort of gave you that opportunity to kind of analyze that service at the financial planning process, but
Yeah.
you did add, there wasn't a whole lot of increases to the service, but you did add some COVID funds again.
Right.
To do the community patrols. So that,
Seasonally though, right?
that's right. So that is actually, that hiring process is currently underway. It's not quite
Oh, it's a
finished
separate
yet,
position.
but yeah, that's
Okay.
in process.
So since we're, having consideration of Airbnb policy and enforcement and all that, is that conversation going to come up again about bylaw capacity and the need for increased hours around that?
Yeah, my understanding is as part of that review, if there is potential for more enforcement work, then that's going to have to be part of any final decision that council would make.
Okay.
So
Okay, Councillor Brown?
I don't have any questions, thanks.
Councillor Sullivan? Nope.
No, you started
Yeah.
with me.
Okay, just making sure. Okay, next we have Development Services Quarterly Report.
So first of all, apologies for a couple of typos, 2022, it's not 2021 anymore. And it's the first quarter of 2022 that this report's on. I'll fix those typos before we put this on the website. So overall, we received fewer new applications in the last quarter than we closed. So the number of active applications dropped. It should actually be 45, not 46 is the total number of active applications. So that's good from a customer service timelines and capacity perspective. And yeah, a few things to mention with major applications and policy work. So the Clow Valley Estates next phase subdivision application received its preliminary layout approval letter from the village. So that means that the applicants now proceed to the design stage or the engineering design for the subdivision. But this one is complex, as you know, and a report to council is coming regarding the reactivated development permit application that was originally submitted in 2019, and regarding a few other matters that will need council approval for the subdivision, given the comprehensive development agreement and road alignment. And for project work, the development approvals modernization project continues. The vacation rental regulation project continues. And we have retained consultants for that density bonus and community amenity contributions project. So as mentioned earlier, that there was a student report, and that was sort of a precursor to what we're doing now. We've hired specialists in land economics to provide some options about how we can better address housing and heritage conservation in VCMU1 zone. So council will be receiving a report on that this year, but it's some work happening in the background first. And I mentioned earlier that we're still seeking consultants for the tree protection bylaw because our first call resulted in no one available. So, do you have any questions?
Councillor Brown will start.
Thank you. I'm glad to see you're getting, well, you're not getting breathing space, let's not kid ourselves, but that the development approvals modernization or whatever is continuing, and that the applications are slowing slightly. I'm curious, what is the status of the lot beside the Waverly? Has he just gone dormant, or what's happened there?
Yeah, so they have issued building permit, but they decided to delay construction. I don't have the dates on the top of my head, but at some point that building permit will expire. And I don't recall how close we are to that.
I'd have to say it's almost 2 years.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Yeah, so I'll look into that. I think it is close.
Real close.
Yeah, but that was my understanding, sort of just waiting for a different time of the market and
And so
material costs.
if that does go dormant, could we have our parking lot back?
I mean, I think that's a decision of the landowner, given that
Yeah.
it's private property.
Okay. And then just to be clear, because I know there's so much concern in the community about Coal Valley Estates moving forward and what that's going to look at, there'll be no earth moving, no tree cutting, no blasting, no nothing until it comes to council, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Sproul? No?
No questions, thanks.
I have a question about the upcoming TUP, but then I read that it was on tonight's agenda. Would that be a better time to address that?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. No questions then.
Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, on the Coal Valley Estates, we had a committee of the whole, I don't know how long ago that was, around that development and the possibility of opening up the comprehensive development agreement. And council gave a lot of feedback during that committee of the whole. But then the development application was pulled or paused, or I'm not sure exactly. So you're kind of saying that he's restarting the same application. So do we have to go back to that same point where we're having to revisit all those same issues and give all that same feedback? Or are we going to be able to start after that point where that's been incorporated and we're ahead?
Good question.
So at that time, the application was still alive. It was never pulled. They were taking their time to give us the complete information and
Okay.
answer some questions.
Okay.
So so I'd say there's a lot of information that that will be taken into account because it's something that staff got feedback from council on, but there hasn't been any formal direction by way of a resolution in open meeting, as I understand, or so I think that if there were some outstanding issues that you'd like to be addressed, they could be brought forward.
I think there were a lot of outstanding
Yeah.
issues. And that's sort of why I'm asking. I think because we did highlight them at that time, but we weren't given an opportunity to make resolutions because he kind of walked out of that meeting. And so, yeah, so.
Oh, I'm thinking of a separate meeting, I think. I'm not sure what I'm
We gave a
thinking.
laundry list
Oh.
of things that weren't acceptable to council, to him.
And also
to staff.
requests for more, for information.
One at a time, please.
Yeah, and lots of requests for information.
Okay. I think if I could clarify, I think I assumed perhaps you were talking about a different meeting. So were you thinking of the July 2020 Committee of the Whole when...
That we had across the street.
Aha. Okay. Okay. I apologize for what I said previously. I was assuming a different meeting. So that was when Coal Valley made a request to amend the CDA.
Yes.
Okay. So they are no longer requesting to amend the CDA.
No.
Right.
But there were, I guess, problems with the development application moving forward without addressing some of those issues that we had within the CDA. So are we starting from that point again where we're saying we need these changes in order to move forward?
Again,
Yeah.
So anything that
Because yeah, like you said, we hadn't had the opportunity to make specific resolutions about what council would like to see, because it kept being delayed. We can't talk about it unless we have a formal development application before us, and then we never did, and so we couldn't address those issues. So I think, I wouldn't want to see him come forward with something, and then we've already talked about all the things that are missing. And then have him frustrated again because they just weren't addressed. So I'm just it's a tough process. I understand there's a bit of cart before the horse type thing. So do we need a separate process among council to address things like blasting permits and things like that, setbacks before the
road adjustment.
before the
Stormwater.
actual development permit comes to us?
Parks, trees.
because they aren't because they aren't requesting to amend the CDA currently, a lot of those issues will be addressed through the development permit, which will come back to council.
So we'll address it all at that time,
Yeah.
all the issues within the CDA that we want to address.
My question would be, sorry, if you don't mind, is that when he presented before, he didn't have all the reports and studies that we had requested. Has he done all those reports and studies?
He has, yes.
Okay, so we will be given all that information?
Yes. So, in fact, the last direction from council, which was quite a while ago now since things did pause, was to receive everything together for that development permit application before it would be referred to council. So we're actually going to go back to that, which was about a year and a half ago now, and provide everything to council next time you see that application in front of you.
Okay, that would be a really big step forward.
And does that include the peer-reviewed reports that we were looking for?
That's correct. Peer review on the stormwater in particular, I think. Yes, we
Yeah.
have that, and we'll include that.
And a geotech on the ravine?
I'll have to check the details, but I will go through all the previous council direction on that and make sure we have everything.
Okay.
Right, Courtney.
Well, you
We
did
just
bring-
don't-
you brought us good news because, from what you're saying.
We're just concerned that he's going to spend a bunch of time and money bringing something forward that we're going to
Yeah.
be like,
We already said no.
we already said no to all of that
Yeah.
several times. Yeah, okay.
Not too much redundancy in this next.
Yes. Okay. Does
Thank you for all your
anybody
work on
else
that.
have any other questions on development services? Nope. Okay, thank you very much. Next, we go to outstanding action items.
I have a question on that.
Yes?
The plastics, I have a page number issue. I'm sorry.
Give the date of or the resolution number perhaps? and the
Yeah,
date?
I don't
Okay.
have that either.
Oh, okay.
It's got to be old.
The resolution number's on the.
Left-hand side.
Yeah, I just have to find where
yeah.
it says plastics. Anyway, I'm just looking for an update on where we're at with the plastic situation because my child comes home with a plastic bag almost every day from somewhere. So are we at the, I know there was a lead time and use all your old stuff and then,
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor. You might have just saw the announcement today. Yesterday, the province released their guidelines for municipalities that want to start appropriately implementing their plastics bylaws.
okay, so we have
And
to
so
start
it
again.
provincially provides us a process and a checklist about what we have to do to properly adopt our bylaw, and so I'll take a review of that and come back to council with a report on what is needed to update that.
Okay, thank you.
Because when we did that, did implement it, we did give them a 6-month leadway, so we'll have to do that again?
Depending on what the bylaws are, I think our businesses are pretty well on
Yeah.
their way. Like when we first implemented it, we were concerned about things like, they buy these things in large quantities and not burdening them with unnecessary costs. I think our business community for the last few years has stuck the course, and I don't see us having the same challenges. Although it's a good reminder, I'll go around to some of our newer businesses, and as we start this process and remind them of what's
The-
required.
The only one that I was concerned about was the liquor store because it's provincially run.
They've changed.
They changed
They're doing
paper only.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
He's reusing the same plastic bag.
No, he's definitely not. He's 17. No, he's definitely not. And it's a place where you buy a lot of candy. So,
Well,
Not that many places.
in Cumberland?
yeah. We can talk later in secret. I think. I know
Okay,
where he's
moving
going.
along, is there any other questions concerning the outstanding issues? I'd like to say you've completed a massive number of them, and it's good to see some of the older ones that have disappeared. They've been around for quite a long time, and so that was really nice to see them disappear. Sorry, I used the wrong word, disappear.
Successfully
That you got.
Finished with
Yes.
fervor.
Yes, yeah, dealt with.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, we have question period. We'd like to open this up to inquiries from the public. And you can bring up anything that was on the agenda, and please email at info@cumberland.ca using subject line question period. Please limit to questions only. Comments will not be used. So the lines are open. And is there any questions from the audience that we would like that?
There's one email.
Okay, yes?
Hello, it's great to see that the various aspects of the OCP are being updated in advance of the new OCP process. Is there a section update plan for climate action? Why or why not? What is the process to update the OCP sections prior to the OCP review process? What does the overall process look like, and what are the relevant timelines? Thanks. On behalf of some moms.
Okay, Courtney, can you address that, please?
Sure, we talked about our OCP update in this agenda.
It's included in the.
Yes, it's
Climate.
included. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, so once we get a little bit closer to being able to officially launch that project, we will we'll have a list of items within topic areas within the OCP that we would recommend for updating, and there'll be quite a bit of community engagement. We don't have a plan proposed to council yet because it is a bit early. So really the details will be coming later, but I don't believe that anything is off the table, and we don't have a specific list of topics that will be covered. So the decision on the scope has yet to be made.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any further questions? Yes? Could you say your name and where you live, please?
Gray from Nanaimo.
Yes?
What we want to do as the village, we go to various reports over and over and over, and communication becomes the same thing again. Communication. What seems to be lacking when we come to and we go to the Coal Valley thing, and there's an example of something that's taken forever to be dealt with and not dealt with and dealt with and report and then a review and a study and a study. It goes on and on and on. What seems to be lacking within the village procedure, and I'm not about to tell you how to run your business, but a Gantt chart, in particular for a subdivision, as in this case here with Coal Valley, a Gantt chart which is older than this village. Gantt charts have been in existence before Cumberland. I've dealt with them myself, been part of them, made some of them, amended them. A Gantt chart is a simple procedure to say, this is the problem, identify the problem, how do you resolve it, when do you do it, what's the time frame, who's responsible, and who's accountable, and how does it get done in a timely and efficient manner. That is lacking here.
Well, excuse me, but I take exception to that. We have worked very hard and very diligently on Coal Valley, and it's not always the council or the staff's issue. It is the developer sometimes, and in their lack of providing the appropriate information for council to make a decision. So I'm not going to argue with you, and I want to thank you for your concerns, but I just don't think you're looking at the whole picture here.
I'm not here to argue with you. I'm just pointing out the fact, speaking to other residents.
These are just for questions. These are not for comments, sir. So if you have a question,
Question is the village going to come up with a procedure to deal with each individual item, whether it's Coal Valley or Bevan Street or Euliston Street, whatever? Are they going to come up with a proper plan that when you go in and make an application for a PLR, you're given one which is specific to that property?
We have that in process. It's called the modernization plan that we are working. We have a consultant that has been hired to work with planning and the rest of the staff to come up with solutions to the things that you're requesting.
So 4 years to divide one piece of property with a...
sir, that's a comment. If you have a question, we've answered your questions. This developer and council and staff have been at odds. He's not providing us with the things that council can approve so far. That's where we're at. So we've answered your question, sir.
So, and if you'd like it to have any further discussion, I would be happy to talk with you. Okay? Thank you very much for your input. Okay, close portion.
I would like to move the council close the meeting to the public pursuant to Section 90 of the Community Charter to consider the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements if the council considers that disclosure could be reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality, the security of the property of the municipality, discussions with municipal officers and employees respecting municipal objectives, measures, progress reports for the purposes of preparing an annual report under Section 98.
Seconder?
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Next, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
See you at 5:30.
Yes, we are on again at 5:30.